emissions. So my name is Tor Ivar Eikås. I'm a special advisor at the Research Council of Norway and will be moderating this panel. And we have a number of privileged, we are very privileged to have very distinguished guests here with us today. And they have all key roles in the EU missions. They have been developing and been part of this part of the Commission activities. And we are covering all the five EU missions: climate adaptation, oceans, cities, soil, and cancer. First, we have Philip Tulkens, Head of Unit in Climate and Planetary Boundaries in DDR&I. And he's also Deputy Manager of the climate missions. We have Andrea Stratinescu, Head of Unit in Maritime Innovation, Marine Knowledge and Investment in DD Mare. Is that correct? And we have Philippe Froissart, Head of Unit Strategy, Policy Coordination and Urban Transitions in the Clean Planet Unit in the DDR&I. And we have Jelena Vidovic, Research Program Officer, New Research and Innovation Concepts in DD Agri. And then we have Jan van der Loo, Senior Expert in Combating Diseases in DDR&I, representing the cancer mission. So welcome everyone. A small hand to all the panel. So earlier today we have heard about the role of the EEA and Norway grants, the role they have played in supporting initiatives in widening countries since 2004. Our discussion today aims to explore two main questions actually that are targeting sort of the synergies and the other part of the date that was mentioned in the earlier panel in this dating activity between the EU and the EEA Norway grants. And the questions are key takeaways. What are the most important insights that you have gained about the EEA and Norway grants that are relevant for your specific missions? And the other one are focusing on the next steps. What should be the imminent and strategic next steps to benefit from, leverage and the achievements so far from the and how to develop synergies between the EEA and Norway grants and the EU missions. So I think we start with the first question, key takeaways and the important insights. Philip, from the perspective of the climate missions, what are the key takeaways from your engagement with the EEA and Norway grants and how you have seen it and learned about it today and what you've heard?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. And I'll address the question, but first I would like to specify one thing. We always have to express ourselves in short expression, but there's the mission I work for is called the EU Mission on Adaptation to Climate Change. And it's not the only mission that deals with climate change. The mission on climate neutral and smart city is also a climate mission, but we tend to sometimes summarize a bit too much. And in this regard, I wish to say that it's very important to consider both aspects, mitigation and adaptation together. Those are the two sides of the same coin. Scientifically, it doesn't make sense to address mitigation without looking at adaptation, and also adapting to climate change without mitigating the emission is also a wrong action. So for framing the debate, I would like to first recall this. And of course, the ocean mission also can contribute to mitigate and to adapt to climate change. So they are the soil mission as well, by the way, I never forget them. So 4 out of the 5, sorry, cancer mission, but you can also contribute somehow, we'll find a way. But it's not all the same, but it's actually approaching these huge and extremely complex societal challenges through different angles, which complement each other, and we do work together to make sure that we facilitate your participation to the mission. To come to your question, the first thing I would like to say is to thank once again the European Economic Area and Norway grants for their support to the mission. I intervened, I think, last year in an event you organized online, and this is fantastic. And it's the proof that some non-member states and also other member states are supporting this initiative, which is a little bit disruptive. And if you have followed how the missions have been developed over the years, since 2021 we started, you may have heard mixed feedback. Some enthusiastic because they grasp the opportunity and they see that the missions are bringing to them real developments, tangible change on the ground, and others a bit lost, or even others involved in the policy-making process in Brussels mostly, a bit lost also because they are not used to deal with these different stakeholders, or they think the activities is disrupting or not giving the visibility to the programs they normally manage. So it is a disrupting activity, but the fact that the EEA and Norway grants support it is extremely helpful to show that this is really a good initiative that will bring the transformative change that is expected on the ground. And also the last item is the feedback that we receive from the signatories of the mission charter in the mission on adaptation to climate change is very rewarding, because they tell us what works, what doesn't work in a very frank manner. Last week we held the forum of the mission in Brussels, and it was extremely rich exchange. And we are being very modest. We really listen to them and collecting what doesn't work, but we also hear about successes, and there are some. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippe. What about you, Andrea? Your background from energy as well as in the Mare and the oceans. And from what you heard today, what are the key takeaways and what can be done with it? Yeah.
Okay, this one works. So good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me here today. If we look around, and probably this is valid for all missions, we have, I would say, a lot of instruments that can support the objectives of each mission. What is important is how we connect the dots. For sure that what I heard today, a lot can be done. If you look at the mission Restore Our Ocean and Water, so addressing all the water, so it's not only about ocean, seas, but also fresh water, the calls that we have had until now, they have a specific request to integrate previously projects that were successful lower on technology readiness level. So we need to be able to give value to a lot of projects that quite often, when ended, are staying there. So how we bring the benefit of previous research later in the demonstration and pilot. So more of the projects that are supported in the Mission Ocean are at this level. So in Norwegian grants, I think that you have plenty of projects. So how we bring them, encourage them to be part of the consortium. And maybe when the grants are signed, it will be good as well for them to know what are the next steps. Then another thing on which we can work together, it's how we are doing and what we are doing even after. And here we are coming with Blue Invest. I don't know if you are aware, but it's the technical assistance that is given to SME and startups with innovative idea to reach the market. So also bringing the bridge towards the commercial part. I think that these grants that you are working on and looking at the countries that are covered are doing a great job. Because in the Mission Ocean, and I think it's not only the Mission Ocean, there is still, I would say, a certain capacity to be built for some countries. So with the projects that are supported, we are opening, I would say, more the doors of researchers towards engaging and being able at a certain point to go to more complex projects like Horizon Europe. Then another element, probably it will be good, encourage the projects that you are supporting to engage with the tools that are really open to everybody, like the mission charter for the Mission Ocean, because the charter will then, once entered in, I would say, in this network, will allow them to work together, to see maybe financing for other projects, and to engage in other activities. So it's networking at the level of the 4 lighthouses that we have in the mission ocean. So a lot is to be done together. I did not mention ocean literacy, but there as well, the projects on education that you have, we want to see them and engage either with the network of Blue Schools, either with activities that we are doing. So I think that there are plenty of opportunities to work together.
Good, thank you, Andrea. So the EEA Norway grants is both a good breeding ground and a stepping stone towards the activities that we do have in the missions and elsewhere in the framework programs. So jumping to next, Philippe Froissart, what about the cities mission?
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Toriva, for this introduction and asking me the questions on the takeaways. But before giving you my takeaways, I'd like to say a few words about where we stand as regard the implementation of the cities mission, because usually we refer to the cities mission as the mission where we want to have 100 climate neutral cities by the end of 2030. And that's not entirely true. We have more than 100 cities. We have 112 cities, because we have actually 12 cities that are coming from associated countries, including the EEA countries. So in fact, out of these 12 cities, we have 4 cities coming from EEA countries: Reykjavik, Trondheim, Stavanger, and Oslo. At the end of January, our mission manager met actually the mayors of the Norwegian cities in Norway, and he was really impressed by the level of preparedness and readiness of those Norwegian cities, and in the fact that they are already well advanced in developing their strategy for climate neutrality. Why am I saying that? Because at the end of the day, in the EEA countries like Norway, you have a pool of cities that have developed an experience, a knowledge on reaching climate neutrality very soon. So this experience is certainly something that can be shared with other cities in Europe, and the EEA grant can provide, I suppose, the opportunity for this exchange of good practices. Now, coming to the takeaway, I think the first one we should, or at least I would consider, is the fact that between what we do in Europe through the framework program in particular and what we can do through the EEA and Norway grants, we can reach a high level of complementarity, win-win complementarity, in a sense that when we launched the mission, since we launched the mission, we have developed a good knowledge of what needs to be done on the ground in city environment to reduce drastically the emission of greenhouse gases. And we can use very likely the EEA grant, the EEA and Norway grant, for filling the gaps that cannot be addressed through our program. And that means activities that are of a research nature, innovation nature, but can touch upon many different aspects linked to the implementation of that strategy for climate neutrality, which could also lead some need to address some issues related to governance or funding, for instance. The second element I would consider is that in a way we can use the EEA and Norway grant as seed funding to kickstart the development of activities that can be leveraged at a later stage by national programs, national funding programs. I think here we can identify the example of Romania, which is a perfect example of how we can use the EEA Norway grant for that purpose. And last but not least, I would say the EEA Norway grant can be used as an equalizer, particularly in those countries that have not necessarily the same level of ambition when it comes to the green and digital transition. And through these grants, you can raise the capacity, raise the awareness in those countries, among those cities that are part of those countries, and use the grants precisely for exchange of good practices and capacity building.
Thank you, Philippe. Capacity building, that's something that definitely the EEA Norway grants can contribute to it. Thank you. So over to you, Jelena, from the soil mission to be in the short. What's your perspective on this?
Thank you. Hope you can hear me. Yeah. So yeah, from soil mission of what we can of course identify a bit closer. Yeah, so we can identify important synergies when it comes to topics and programs, which I think some of them of course quite straightforward, being environment and ecosystem, and topics like soil pollution, like habitat change, biodiversity loss, mismanagement of natural resources, and climate change mitigation as well. And Agnieszka mentioned in a previous panel that actually quite a lot of projects already existing that link to existing missions, and we also identify important synergies there when it comes to. So there are several projects funded by EEA and Norway grants that actually link to mission so-called innovation hotspots. So it was defined in before the mission in a gap analysis that there's quite a lot of knowledge and data needed on certain topics when it comes to soil health, in particular biodiversity, soil pollution, carbon farming, and waste management. So and just to give you an idea, what is being done within a mission soil when it comes to these topics, when it comes to biodiversity, for example, we have projects working on biodiversity as a driver for key ecosystem services. Also a project working on biodiversity-based ecosystem services to build better land management solutions. When it comes to soil pollution, we have projects working on developing tools to support land managers for safeguard, restoring and remediating restoring polluted soils. When it comes to carbon farming, we have a network for carbon farming that aims to build consensus on methodologies in order to maximize the use of soils as carbon sinks. And we also have two projects on monitoring, reporting, and verifying one working on framework in order to standardize systems, and one working on acquiring data for carbon sequestration and greenhouse gas emissions. So I'm telling you all of that just to give you a bit of context and to make it to link it to something more practical. At the moment, we have open calls for mission projects working on 9 topics. Being, for example, again, it will be on biodiversity, it will be on carbon farming, but we'll have topics on nitrogen fluxes. We'll have 2 topics on living labs, topics on soil erosion, soil health in Africa, and so on. And we consider that EEA and Norway projects actually represent a good basis, a good starting point to apply for mission soil projects. So we invite you to take a look at the calls and to see if you can build on your existing projects to prepare successful proposals for mission soil projects. Maybe just one more thing is that there is a possibility for widening countries to join actually existing projects, but we can mention that with the next question. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jelena. Very interesting. And of course, there are many ongoing calls in all the missions that are interesting for the EEA Norway grants projects. And the question is, how do they get known? And how do we spread the knowledge about it? And now we go to Jan van der Loo. You are from the more non-Green Deal mission, the cancer. Do you have another take on it, or is it the same from your perspective?
Good work. Yeah. No. So I think you all understand that if you look at the 4 missions working on towards the Green Deal, of course, health prevention is an important aspect, because all that you see happening with climate change is going to affect our health, including but not only cancer. So I think indeed I don't have many other takeaways, but I think one of the key aspects for us is, as was mentioned, if you look at your program, which I was quite impressed because I didn't know about the program until a few months ago, is that clearly I also see the regional aspects, the stepping stones, whatever you name it. I think that's a very important part that I think with the cancer mission we could definitely work on with your scheme, because that's actually what is difficult in cancer, to create this, to fill the gap between what we're trying to do at European level and what we need to be doing at local and regional levels. So cancer is addressed at regional levels, but much more needs to be done. And we have a hard time reaching, let's say, getting programs up and running with regions, local communities. I mean, we do things in when it comes to citizen engagement, but I think much more needs to be done. So I really see lots of possible interactions as well. So I think capacity building, and yeah, that definitely is. And then of course for cancer, some things take a lot of time. You can say, okay, tomorrow we need a solution for head and neck cancer. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work like this. But the example that you showed in the video on prevention, so primary prevention and secondary prevention being screening and early detection, that's where we still think, and not only us, we can make the biggest difference. It's also the cheapest solution. It's something that you could implement relatively quickly at local and regional levels. So we are doing our best. For example, we have started a bus roadshow on the 9th of May in Lithuania. It's going to tour around Lithuania, Poland, and Romania, just to get to interact with as many citizens as possible, explain to them about what are health benefits, not just about cancer, but the positive message, what you can do for your health. Because if you take care of your health, it also is good for reducing cancer. So these are things we already do, but I think here I see clearly the example showed clearly, thinking about reaching minorities, reaching about rural areas. I think a lot more needs to be done. We have projects on self-sampling in cervix cancer, but again, these are, as you say, drops in the ocean. So there's a big difference between a research project and what you can achieve and should be achieving at the healthcare systems level. So, and that's where I want to make the connection. So we talk here about missions, the cancer mission, but the cancer mission actually works very closely with the Europe's Beating Cancer Plan. So these are two very big cancer initiatives. One is more focusing on research, innovation, citizen engagement. We really serve as the main hub for citizen engagement in the cancer plan, but the cancer plan is more the one that is that's the official flagship of this commission. It is very more focused on public health and a number of other policies. And so when you think of the cancer mission, you have to think also about this other big initiative. We work on a daily basis. Everything we do is complementary, from the calls to the communication to working with citizens. So I think that is the last thing I want to mention here, that and also there I see already that there could be interesting interactions. But for this, I think we need first to sit together in a dedicated meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, we need to talk. That's bottom line also. Thank you, Jan. Now we are going to the second question, and time is running. So I will ask you to be very concise and short, maybe give 2 concrete examples on what could be done, what should be the next steps, and just to maybe try to explore the possibilities. Could it be possible to have some kind of take-up activities? I haven't asked you this before, so this came as a surprise. But for the next step, and when you have calls in the missions, could there be some dedicated take-up actions that are dedicated to the EEA and Norway grants in order for get them engaged in other activities where EU is involved outside the EU, like mission innovation, there you engage or ask you, in particular mission innovation countries outside the EU member states and associated countries are especially invited. Could you see something else? But in general, next steps. And then I think we start with Jelena this time.
Yeah, it's working. Yeah, thank you. Actually, to come back to your question, which you reacted on my previous input, previous feedback, is we are having engagement sessions that are being done by actually one of our support projects called Nations. So the objective is to mobilize and build capacity of stakeholders across member states and associated countries. I checked with the project this morning, and they indeed plan to have sessions in widening countries. And so what we could do is especially promote, because they build capacity to apply for mission soil calls. So what we could do is jointly strengthen to promote actually this engagement session in widening countries, and another immediate action that we can see that's also related to nation projects is that they are managing a matchmaking platform and matchmaking events. So they have a long-term online matchmaking platform which aims to provide space for stakeholders to meet, to create partnerships, to establish living labs. So also invite you to visit the website, to join and try to find partners for your future projects. What I mentioned at the beginning is possibility for widening countries to join ongoing projects. So maybe you're aware of it, maybe not, that there is a Hop-on facility which allows research institutions from widening countries to join ongoing projects under Horizon Europe Cluster 2. So, I mean, you could explore that. And of course, what I mentioned is applying for the future calls. Maybe just that EEA could also, and Norway grants could support Mission Soil, but in long term in future by providing grants for application of technologies developed under the Mission Soil and by maybe extending a Living Labs network. Yeah, thanks. We have more ideas, but maybe we leave it for tomorrow for the workshop. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of food for thought for the workshop and table discussion tomorrow. Back to you, Jan. Very concise, and what could be the next steps?
Yeah. So first of all, in cancer, we have supported an ERAnet that brings together most, but not all, of the national cancer funders in Europe. It has 22 member states. It includes Taiwan, Canada. Some of the Scandinavian countries are participating. Also, the Norwegian Cancer Society is one of the charities that is on board. And so these funds bring together research money through a strategic research agenda and then issue calls. This is a very well-known program. It's called TransCan. Very much, let's say, always appreciated by the younger cancer scientists in Europe. But I think that the participation of Scandinavian countries could be improved in that network. So I think a very concrete thing would be that this grant initiative maybe gets in touch with TransCan, for example. Because this, as I said, is has been ongoing for a long time, and we expect it is going to continue for a number of years to come. And for the rest, I think the next thing would be to sit together.
Good, thank you, Jan. To you, Philip, with the Cities mission. In short, your most important.
I will be very short. I am actually quite intrigued by your remark on the mission innovation, because you may be aware that we have a mission, or urban transition mission in mission innovation. I'm aware of the fact that Norway is looking at the possibility of becoming one of the core member of this urban transition mission. Now, if you tell me that the EEA and Norway grant can be used to cater for the needs of cities outside Europe, you are going to become my best friend.
I think you interpreted it a bit wrongly then.
But still, this international dimension, I should say, is very important, because whatever we do in Europe and in the EEA countries is pointless if the other part of the world does not follow suit. And that's why we have a mission in mission innovation and urban transition, because we feel that we need to work together with all the cities in the world, not all of them, of course, but at least with a certain number of those cities, so that we can share good practices and the experience that we have developed in Europe to help them bridge that gap when the time comes. Because if we are alone in Europe to do that, this is going to lead to nothing. So maybe coming back to the question on the next steps, I think it's in my perspective, we have to raise awareness even more of what you do in the EEA and Norway grants. I mean, starting with the colleagues in the Commission. Earlier on, one of my colleagues from DG Mar said that she had no knowledge whatsoever of what EEA grant, Norway grant was. And I have to say, in all honesty, my level of knowledge was not that high either. Because, for instance, I was quite surprised by the budget. So some of you said, well, it's not a lot of money. Compared to what we have in the missions, you know, it's still significant. So you can make a big impact. And I think it would be important to reach out to those countries that are actually not participating in the activities of the EEA Norway grant and the missions, because there is a potential there as well. And for the future program, I think you need to work in a way that you design your program so that it is done in complementarity what is going to be done in other programs. And that does not restrict the scope to the research program, But Susanna, I think, was mentioning the structural funds. I think we need to build that also, to take that into account. And there, I would slightly disagree with my colleague from the JRC. Synergies, you also have to develop, to design them from the start. I'm not saying that you can foresee everything, but you need to make sure that the legal base that you have in those different programs allow for synergies at a later stage.
Yeah. Thank you. And I have to stress, the mission innovation was only meant as an example where the Commission engaged in programs outside their own remit, so to say. But good. Thank you very much. And for you, Andrea, your actions.
If we look at the future for the mission Restore Our Ocean and Waters, we are entering now in the phase in which we like the innovation that is demonstrated to be replicated. So we are speaking about replication, so proving that innovation can function in various parts of Europe. We have in the mission Ocean and the projects that have been selected for the ones specific to lighthouses, the associated regions. So maybe to have a look as well and to see which the associated regions are. There are normally the calls that have been closed, the ones selected, and the ones that are open on the website of the mission implementation platform, because these regions are the first one in which the replication of innovation is going to happen. For sure that we like this as much as possible across Europe. It's a matter of capacity building, and for this, for sure, you can play an important role. And maybe in the future, when projects are selected or that are relevant for the mission, I think it will be good that we are aware, and in the same time to see maybe how the EEA and Norway grants can support the mission objectives, I would say, in complementarity. Probably the word synergy, it's quite widely used. I prefer the complementarities, because sometimes and quite often we cannot combine the funding, but we can support each other and the objectives that we have linked to the ocean and waters.
More direct information from the EEA Norway grants projects to the Commission and targeted, I think, was part of what you said. And you, Philip, at the end, very short.
I'll help you, don't worry. I see that you're anxious about the time. Very quickly, if you're a regional or local entity, apply to technical assistance of the EU mission on adaptation to climate change. This is offered by MIP4ADAPT, the platform running the mission, and several projects part of the mission. All this is clearly stated on the portal of the mission. Apply to the 9 calls. Deadline 18th of September 2024. Third, mobilize regional funds that you have access to. Fourth, use your EEA and Norway grant to help you in this regard. I thank for the existence of these grants. They need to be used to help you. Other things that have not been mentioned, I mean, my colleagues were very clear on what they suggest, but it has not been mentioned that actually widening measures could be used. Within the Commission, I contacted several times my colleagues working on widening, never worked. Maybe if on your end, you connect the dots, it will increase the impact. And last element, on the 5th of June, there is a matchmaking event online to find partners, and I invite you to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. And there is no time to sum up. A big hand to the panelists. I think they made a lot of good contributions. Thank you.